Chapter 23. The Other Twin. On Siedmiodzi, someone else arrived in Soravigno. Around Manmieshe, there was a knock on the door. Since Father Jonvão was saying Manmieshe, and Thefia had risen early to do the washing, Elinsco answered the door. He was able to walk, but very unsteadily. Father Jonvão almost tried to help him, but Elinsco put up his hand and glared. A young woman, Father Jonvão's age, stood there. She was the same height as him, but slighter, with brown eyes. She had the same hair of indeterminate color, Elinsco knew, but it was almost completely hidden under a black veil. She wore a simple black dress that fell to her ankles, though it had a white collar, and was tied with a thick white sash, and a black cloak and scapular, the latter of which was not under her sash as many other orders wore them. She looked tired, but wore a smile. Elinsco stiffened as she hugged him, lifting him off the ground like he was still a little boy. "Oh, Pinos!" He tried to squirm out of his sister's grip, looking much like a cat as he did so. His face turned a brighter shade of red than both the Jarissa King's hair, and both his and Thefia's faces after the previous WOH. He had hoped, in vain, that maybe Sister Ashadelia would calm down after entering the convent, and maybe be less annoyingly affectionate. But no, she was just as enthusiastic and embarrassing as ever. If anything, now that they spent less time together, she seemed to have gotten worse. He had held a similar hope for Father Jonvão, which had similarly not come true. Father Jonvão finished his prayers and went to the door, smiling when he saw his twin at the door. "Sister, what are you doing here?" he said. Though he was smiling, he was worried. The Loudons rarely left the convent. They might leave to run errands, but they were usually largely self-sustaining, or for an intellectual journey. The remaining reasons were big events, like a family member getting married, or emergencies. She sighed, much to Elinsco's relief, releasing him. Elinsco leaned against the doorframe and straightened his hat, something that was annoyingly difficult. "We got raided and scattered. I decided to come here," she explained. Father Jonvão gasped, and Elinsco's eyes widened. "Oh, my goodness! Are you all right?" She nodded, though her expression had become serious. "I'm fine. It's my sisters I'm worried about. I'm also confused. I heard the Jarissa King is back? What's that about?" "How long are you staying for?" he asked. "Not long. Dralirvyesh at the latest, and then I'm going to start looking for them." "Dralirvyesh?" Father Jonvão said. "That's still a couple weeks off." "I know, but I want to give them a little time to stop running around. They'll be easier to find if they ain't moving." She frowned. "Do you have an extra copy of the prayer cycle? In a Delsite with chance?" Father Jonvão smiled. "Of course I do." She smiled again. "Thank you. May I come in?" He nodded. They both went in and sat at the table. Father Jonvão closed the door behind him. "So what's Urbinos doing here?" Sister Ashadelia asked. She abruptly noticed his missing hand, and her previously cheerful expression turned to anger. "Who hurt Elinsco Kiso?" Elinsco looked down. Father Jonvão sighed, crossing his arms. "The Jarissa King." She blinked and frowned, thinking. "So that's real, then. And..." She looked up. "Is Urbinos the Arexacico?" He blinked in surprise. Elinsco looked up, surprised as well. "How'd you guess?" "And yes, he is," said Father Jonvão. She smiled a little. "I'm a Baladin, Father. What did you expect? Not to mention I'm older and wiser than you." Father Jonvão rolled his eyes. "By 10 minutes!" She smiled a second longer, and then her expression became serious. "So what happened? And is he all right? And Thefasija?" Father Jonvão told her what Thefia had explained to him, as well as Elinsco's illness and silence. She was still confused about how Garento had returned and wondered how he was alive. Her theory was that his soul was put into an object, or he had died but was possessing some Jarissan who happened to look a lot like him. She sighed. "What happened to that boy, Lonxeux?" "We ain't sure, but we've been praying for him," Father Jonvão said. Elinsco frowned. Lonxeux had not appeared, but that did not necessarily mean he had been captured. Maybe he had gone to Sillery to look for them, or gone looking for the princess and her family, or via Dirmos, Ilzisnia, via Bras, and via Silenta, or returned to Bori to look after his mother. She nodded. "Saint Garesha Valerie, pray for us." The words had practically burned themselves into Elinsco and Tefia's minds since they had reached Soravino, along with Saint Elminio. There was a pause, and then Father Jonvão looked at Elinsco. "Now back to bed, young man," he said. Elinsco looked up at him, bitter and petulant. "Or what? You'll make me again?" he thought. "Who are you, my brother or my father?" Despite his bitter thoughts, he did want to go back to bed. "You heard the doctor, Binos," said Sister Ashadelia. "You need your rest." Elinsco crossed his arms and rolled his eyes, but he did stagger back to bed, again rejecting his siblings' offers of help. Sister Ashadelia frowned. "That braid. Did he and the Vasija get married?" Elinsco stiffened and blushed, though she could not see him. Father Jonvão smiled and shook his head. "Not yet, sadly. They're just pretending to be married." Elinsco rolled his eyes and sat down. He knew he loved Tefia, but he did not really want his siblings to know. He did not want to deal with the lifetime of hearing "I told you so" that would follow just yet. Sister Ashadelia smiled. "I forgot how small he is. Only comes up to my chest." Elinsco sat up again, glaring at her, but he did not say anything. "Well, you three didn't spend the past 17 years punching him for no reason," Father Jonvão said, smiling a little. Tall women were the bane of Elinsco's existence. If he did not fixate on her face as if it were the only thing in the world, he ended up on the wrong side of her fist. Or her husband's. Or brother's. Or father's. In one case, that of a random stranger of no relation. The worst were very tall women, such as his sisters or the Queen, where he also had to stand a good distance away. She paused, then her expression became worried, and she looked over at him, then back at her twin. "Nothing? Goodness, that ain't good," she said. Father Jonvão sighed. "I know." There was a pause, then Sister Ashadelia frowned. "Where's the Vasija?" "Washing clothes in the stream," said Father Jonvão. "But you can't call her or Il Pinos by their real names when we ain't alone. The Vasija is calling herself Farelia and Dushakizo Carro." Sister Ashadelia frowned. "Carro and Farelia? But Bopo's name was Garinchon and her mother and sister have Feralian names." He smiled a little. "That's what I said, but they are common names." She inclined her head, then looked up. "I want to talk to her," she said. Father Jonvão frowned. "Go out wearing that? Are you sure?" Sister Ashadelia straightened, her gaze hard. "I have worn the clothes of my order since the day I professed my vows. I will wear them now," she said. He put up his hands in surrender. "All right, wear your habit." She rose and went to find Tefia. The girl was kneeling by the stream, scrubbing at her pants, her face set in concentration. She had bought a new dress. It was thick, but not dyed. "Good morning, Bella Farelia, is it?" the Sister Ashadelia asked. Tefia jumped, startled both by someone talking to her and by the familiar and very much unexpected voice. She looked up, smiling. "Good morning, sister," she said. "Yes, I'm Farelia. Who are you?" The nun smiled. "Sister Ashadelia of the Order of St. Balados. The priest here is my brother." Tefia frowned. "I think he's mentioned you. You two are twins, right?" She nodded. "If we were related, we would have had to do that hand thing to decide who inherited. Up there they call it stone parchment shears. They actually use it to decide a lot of things, not just who inherits. Just Aleda, though, not Tonatera. There, only boys can inherit." She stopped and chuckled. "Paladins. Our official motto is prayer, study, work, but it really should be make it more complicated than it needs to be and make alcohol." Tefia smiled. "How long are you staying for?" "Just until Dralirvyesh," Sister Ashadelia said. She nodded to the pile of clothes next to her. "Do you want some help with that?" Tefia sighed. "Yes, please." Both Elinsco and Father Jonvão had offered to help, but she had refused it. Sister Ashadelia knelt beside her, taking one of Elinsco's shirts. "This is the good thing about wearing black all the time. Stains don't show up as easy." Tefia frowned, returning to her work. "What's the bad side?" "Summer, especially since we work outside a lot. Paladins had to get their food from somewhere, and that somewhere was usually their farm." She smiled. "Did Father tell you what happened to my husband?" Sister Ashadelia shook her head. She had heard the real story, but highly doubted Tefia would want anyone to know that her husband was injured fighting the Jarissa King. Tefia told her the story she had been using. Sister Ashadelia nodded. I see. I'm sorry. She tried to smile. I'm fine. It's Gregicica I'm worried about. He don't talk, you see. Never has, so it's hard for him to tell me how he's feeling sometimes. She sighed. And he can be very proud and stubborn. A few days ago, when we were trying to get here, he refused to stop until he was about to collapse from exhaustion. If he'd had his way, I'd have been dragging his sleeping body along. Sister Ashadelia smiled. Are you his wife or his mother? The Fia sighed and sat back. Honestly, sometimes they feel like the same thing, especially in times like this. I know what you mean about his pride. My brother wanted him to get some rest, and he acted like an angry child. The Fia nodded. When Father first treated Gregicica's hand, he gave him something to help him sleep through being burnt, but my goodness did he fight him on that. I don't love that he was forced, but Gregicica can be so stubborn. If he didn't, he'd probably faint from the pain and still insist he didn't need it when he woke. Well, he wouldn't be saying it, but that's what he'd be thinking. Sister Ashadelia gave her a sympathetic look. I'm sorry. Has he done things like that before? She nodded again. Oh, yes! Once he had a cold, and you know how bad men are with colds. Sister Ashadelia nodded, chuckling. All too well. I have 3 brothers. It was the Fia's turn to give her a sympathetic look. I'm sorry. Anyway, Gregicica had a cold, and he nearly looked half dead. But he was trying to act like nothing was wrong. I spent most of that day just trying to keep him in bed. Sister Ashadelia smiled at the memory. It was a mostly true story. Elinsco had been about 5, and his sisters and Mirsha's daughters, even 3-year-old Faria and 1-year-old Mia, had spent a great deal of effort doing that. Eventually, Mirsha and Jonvão forced them out, and the latter took over. Sounds fun, Sister Ashadelia said. It was not, said the Fia. No, it weren't, Sister Ashadelia thought. You should hear all the stupid things my older brother's done to impress girls, she said, smiling. The Fia looked up. Did it work? Well, he's 30, unmarried, and I ain't exactly the best judge of these things, but it looks like his best chance is with the widowed mother of the girl we say my youngest brother should marry. So... The Fia almost choked on her own spit at the thought that Belasha Loso was the right age to marry her mother, which would then make the boy she loved her uncle. I see, she managed. A couple of days later, someone else arrived, L'Oncle. He was dirty and tired from his long journey, but mostly uninjured. The Fia frowned him. Oh, good morning, she said. Do you need a place to stay? He gave a relieved smile and nodded. I do. His accent was strong, but he used no dialect. I've been staying with the priest here, she said. Let's ask if you can stay too. L'Oncle's smile turned grateful. Thank you. They went to the rectory. The Fia knocked on the door. Sister Ashadelia opened it. Good morning! Who's this? A boy who needs shelter. Can he stay here? The Fia asked. She frowned. Well, it's Father's house, but he's away right now. I'm sure he won't mind you staying, at least until he comes back, she said. L'Oncle smiled. Thank you. The moment they were inside and the door was closed, the Fia threw her arms around L'Oncle and hugged him fiercely. Elinsco sat upright, and then his face broke into a grin. He staggered over, unsteady from both excitement and sickness, and joined in the hug. A second later, L'Oncle hugged them back. Thank goodness you're safe! The Fia exclaimed. L'Oncle smiled. I could say the same to you. Elinsco paused. Sister Ashadelia blinked. Do you 3 know each other? The 3 friends pulled away, all smiling. Elinsco held on to the Fia for support. Yes, this is L'Oncle Jarissa, the Fia said. Sister Ashadelia smiled. Your missing friend? L'Oncle nodded. I'm L'Oncle Jarissa. Elinsco frowned, but the Fia smiled, glad their friend felt he could trust the people around him. Or maybe after a week of dealing with Arexacico, he had decided there were things far worse than his very berated name. The nun's smile warmed. I've heard about you. I'm glad you're safe. He returned it. So, what's your name? The Fia blinked and glanced at her. Oh, this is Elisejo's sister, Sister Ashadelia, she said. Sister Ashadelia nodded. The Order of St. Balados. Well, it's nice to meet you, sister, Jarissa said. Likewise, she said. Here, let me take your cloak, and come sit. Have you eaten? Jarissa let her take his cloak, and he and his friend sat at the table. Nisco fell into his chair gratefully, but tried not to show it. They all noticed. Almost involuntarily, Thefia took his hand. Jarissa shook his head. I haven't eaten well in a while, he said. Sister Ashadelia nodded. I'll get something. I'm sure father won't mind. Thefia's expression settled into that almost maternal concern it so often did. Are you all right, Jarissa? She asked. Why did it take you so long to get here? He sighed. I got captured, but I got away. Nisco nodded and let go of Thefia's hand so he could rest it on Jarissa's shoulder, offering him a sympathetic smile. Arexacico had not been as cruel to him as to other people, but he had seen what she could do. Jarissa smiled. It's all right. I'm fine now. Thefia frowned. Are you sure? You seem quiet. Her face was only concerned. Jarissa stiffened almost imperceptibly, then shrugged, smiling. I'm all right, Thefasija. I'm just tired, and it's good to be back, he said. She relaxed and smiled, but Linsco still looked concerned. It's just Alicijo's sister, Jarissa. You can call me Thefsija. For goodness sake, you're using your full name, she said. Jarissa smiled and nodded, and she leaned forward again. Are you hurt? She asked. He shook his head. Not badly. Nothing I can't handle on my own. Linsco frowned. Good, Thefia said. I still think you should let father check you over, Sister Ashadelia said. Even small injuries could be dangerous. She came over and set a few slices of bread spread with jam in front of him. Here, eat. Jarissa smiled. Thank you. He ate. Thefia paused. Jarissa, do you know if it's true? What they say about the king and queen? Rumors of their capture had reached Soravino, but nothing had been confirmed. Jarissa sighed. I don't know. I've heard the rumors, but I don't know if they're true. I guess that means there's hope, Thefia said, trying to smile a little. I guess so, Jarissa said. Linsco nodded. His feelings on the queen were also conflicted, but much like his friend, he did not want her to die. Father Jonvão returned a little bit later. He noticed Jarissa and frowned. Good afternoon. What's your name? Thefia smiled. This is Jarissa. He's back safely. Father Jonvão smiled as well. Your Beraden friend? Jarissa nodded. Yes, I'm Jarissa. He sat with them. Well, I'm glad you're safe. Ushekiso and Thefasija have told me a lot about you. Really? Jarissa looked at Linsco and Thefia. Thefia smiled. Course we did. You're our friend. Are you hurt? Father Jonvão asked. Jarissa shook his head. I can handle it on my own. I still think you should check him over, Sister Ashadelia said, still standing. Linsco nodded, remembering what had happened to him during his journey with Thefia. Father Jonvão nodded. She's right. He looked at Linsco. Even small things could get infected. Speaking of which, he said, addressing his brother, you should go back to bed, Binos. Linsco looked up and crossed his arms, shaking his head. Father Jonvão sighed. Why do you always have to fight me on this? He said. Same reason I always have. Linsco thought. Binos, you can barely walk, he said. Linsco stiffened and glared at him. What? Will you make me again? He thought bitterly. Father Jonvão crossed his arms. Linsco, you need to rest. Sister Ashadelia and Thefia exchanged a glance. Linsco. Not even Linsco quiso. He was serious about this. Linsco did nothing. He just kept glaring. Father Jonvão sighed. Fine, but you still need it. Linsco relaxed and leaned back in his chair. Thefia took his hand. Ushe quiso, Thefasija, Sister Ashadelia said, her tone chiding but light. You know you can't hold hands until you're married. Linsco and Thefia pulled away from each other, blushing. What? Thefia said. She smiled. No holding hands until marriage, and no kissing until the birth of your first child. Everyone knows that. They managed to blush even more fiercely. What? Thefia repeated, her voice going up an octave. She's joking, the fascija, Father Jonvão said, smiling as well. Sister Ashadelia nodded. Ever heard of the Biedites? The Fiad frowned. I've heard that they're crazy. She smiled. Yes. They're crazy fake Nauterist Baladins who unfortunately know how to read and write and insist their monastery is not the abbot's family estate's cellar. See, because we haven't had no communication with the Dara in hundreds of years, and bishops need to be approved by the Shedyesh, there ain't no more real bishops. And since priests have to be ordained by the bishop, there ain't no more real priests either. So instead of going to Alakaria and Agradienye, we have to stay home and pray 15 decades of the Faralish Hirnye. He also really likes to complain about the modernist inventions of the Savine councils. Thefia frowned. Ain't that a mortal sin? And ain't that the council 200 years ago when the bishops decided to get serious about celibacy? It had always been a discipline, but one somewhat ignored by the time of the Savine councils, of which there had been two. At Savine I, the bishops had declared any marriage after a priest's ordination was null and void. Widowers with grown children and married Alean-Rite men could be priests, but they could not get married after being ordained. Savine II had reaffirmed that. Yes, said Sister Ashadelia. Then why not be Alean-Rite? Thefia asked. Because, she was struggling to hold back laughter long enough to explain, it's demonic, because they use leavened bread in the divine liturgy, and bread rises because of a demon. Father Jonvão and Thefia laughed. Nisco and Lonxoriza smiled. Sister Ashadelia's expression became wistful. One of the things we like to do back at the convent is to dramatically read out his writings. It's honestly hilarious, but dangerous too, so we refute them. I don't think he actually says you can't hold hands before marriage, but Nauterists hate physical affection so much they sound like Anarists sometimes. Father Jonvão nodded. I've noticed that. I wonder why. Nisco looked up. She smiled a little. Probably because most heresies are just Anarism wearing a different hat. He chuckled, imagining how a Nauterist would react to being called a heretic. She realized Lonxo was there and blushed. Oh, wait, sorry, I didn't mean... We're in communion now. Lonxoriza frowned. It's all right. Thefia frowned as well. You know Nauterists? She asked Father Jonvão. He nodded. Unfortunately. Do I want to know? He shook his head. No. Thefia exchanged a glance with Linsco and Lonxo. Then she blinked and looked up. Wait, who said we're going to get married? The twins smiled. No one, Thefasija, Sister Ashadelia said. I just said you can't hold hands until you're married, and don't even think about kissing. Linsco and Thefia straightened and blushed, though they tried to fight the latter, thinking of what happened after a Lardovyesh and on Hiladian night. The twins exchanged confused glances. Lonxo frowned. You've kissed? What? The pitch of Thefia's voice was so high it sounded more like a squeal or a shriek. No! Linsco stared at his lap. Thefasija, I've heard a lot worse, said Father Jonvão. After less than a year, priests had heard it all. Sister Ashadelia nodded. I was joking when I said it's a mortal sin to kiss before the birth of your first child. Only people with enough scrupulosity and prudishness to fill a lake, Anarists and Nauterists, say that. He frowned. You said the same thing 3 times. She smiled. Thefia crossed her arms. That ain't why I can't say it, and you know it. He nodded. So you have. I didn't say that, she said. Maybe I just think that no matter what I say, you'll think we did. He inclined his head. You're right, we probably will. She rolled his eyes. If you weren't my best friend's brother, I'd hate you. He smiled. And if I weren't your best friend's brother, I wouldn't have spent the past, 12 years saying you two should get married. She sighed. At least you're honest. He paused. So did you? She exchanged a look with Linsco, then sighed and buried her face in her hands. Yes, we did, she said into them. Last Hiladi night and when we were going home after last Alardovyesh. She let out a very heavy sigh. You were right. And the siblings rejoiced, and began the largest I told you so ever said. Lonxo smiled. Thefia looked at Linsco and took his hand. Both were blushing, but Linsco seemed distracted by something. Thefia wondered what. His hand, she guessed. Luzmo and Vila walked up the path to Old Sillery, via Inha between them. After 4 months of eating enough and not being a slave in all but name, Villacinia looked almost unrecognizable. She was clean, her hair brushed, and she no longer looked like a light breeze could push her over. She was wearing an Ozinin dress that used to belong to one of Via Mirsha's daughters. Vila and Luzmo were also more relaxed, though Luzmo hated how much they had to move around, since he did not like being in unfamiliar places. Vila wished they could stay in one place, but it was too dangerous. Being married, Vila wore a wimple that belonged to Via Mirsha before Veron died, and Luzmo had a braid on the left side of his face. Luzmo had wanted to let his beard grow to better hide his identity, but then hated how it felt, and had gotten a hook to replace his missing hand. At the entrance, they met two guards who both straightened at their approach. "Who are you?" one asked. The other one frowned. "Vila?" The first looked at her. "Really?" He looked closer at Vila. "Is it?" Villacinia frowned, and Vila and Luzmo shared a confused and worried glance. "What?" Vila said. "Vila, it's me, it's Zelia," said the girl. Vila frowned and looked closer, then smiled. "Zelia! My goodness, it's been a long time." Zelia smiled as well. "It has." She looked at Luzmo and Villacinia. "And it looks like you got married. Are they your husband and daughter?" Vila and Luzmo looked at each other, then back at Zelia. "He's my husband, and she's—" "All right, let's go with the daughter," Vila said. "Dorma numa ban bobo," Villacinia said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Zelia nodded. "So you don't have parents and they're caring for you?" Villaciña's eyes lit up, and she smiled and nodded. "Yes, that's what's happening." Zelia smiled back. "Well, that's very kind of them." She nodded. "They are. I loved my first Papa and Bobo, but I love my new ones too." The first guard still looked suspicious. "What are you doing here?" Vila and Luzmo looked up, their expression serious again. "We need to speak with Lady Inha," Vila said. "It's important." He opened his mouth to question it, but she cut him off. "And not something I should talk about out here." He frowned. "All right, you can go in, but your husband and ward should wait out here." Villaciña frowned. Luzmo blinked. Vila's expression hardened. "No, they're coming with me." Luzmo shook his head. "It's fine, Vifacisha. We can wait." She shook her head. "No, you're both coming with me." The guard frowned. "We don't usually let in outsiders." Vila stared at him. "That's what this is about? Don't you think we have bigger things to worry about than a war that's over?" "I'm just trying to be careful." "Well, it sounds like you're doing exactly what got us into that mess." She crossed her arms. "But I see. It's fine, because you're a Soledo saying it to Solendites." Luzmo frowned. "Well, that went—" She cut him off. "Not now, Lusacijo." The guard stopped, then sighed. "Fine. You can all go in." "Thank you," Vila said stiffly. "Follow me," Zelia said. She led them to Lady Inha. The Lady Soledo blinked in surprise. "Vila! It has been a long time since I saw you around here." Vila smiled. "It has, my lady." Her tone became serious. "We have something to tell you. It's important, but not something we should talk about out here." Lady Inha nodded. "I see. Well, let's go inside." Vila nodded. "Is Gregicica here?" She shook her head. "No, she's away." "I see." Vila did not bother asking why. Lady Inha led them to her house. Arexo Castle, the old dwelling place of Saint-Chandon House, had been destroyed in the Great Jarissa War. After the Soledi went into hiding, Saint-Chandon had decided to just build a large house, rather than a castle. At that point, an actual castle would have probably been larger than the town. It was certainly a modest dwelling as far as nobles' houses went, but it was still a noble's house. They went to the parlor. Luzmo, Vila, and Villaciña sat, but Lady Inha stayed standing. "So, what is it you wanted to tell me?" she asked. "We know how the Jarissa King returned," Vila said. There was a gasp from the other room. They all turned to see where it came from. "Songe?" Lady Inha asked. Princess Silenda came out, smiling guiltily. "Sorry," she said. "It's all right," Lady Inha said. "You're doing a great job of not being noticed. You even hid your soul." "Well, I'm Soledi, ain't I?" the girl said. Vila and Luzmo exchanged a wary glance, but Villaciña smiled. "You're pretty," she said. Princess Silenda smiled. "Thank you. Who is this?" Vila asked. "And who names their daughter Songe?" She blushed. "It's a nickname. Most people here call me Luchonsa." Probably for the best, Vila thought. She had grown up in a Soledo town, but was still familiar with the various creative ways people had of pointing out that she was a Soleda. I found her while traveling here. Her parents were killed by the Jarissa King's forces, so she's staying here, Lady Inha said. It would be the truth, eventually. Princess Silenda fidgeted, blinking. Like what they're doing for me? Vyasinya asked. Not exactly. She ain't a new mother. She's just letting her stay here till it's safe, Luzmo said. Well, are you sure she should be listening? Vila asked. She can be trusted, Lady Inha said. Princess Silenta nodded. I would never have a man like him, she said. Not after everything he's done. Vila still looked wary, but did not argue. Princess Silenta sat next to her godmother. So what happened? Lady Inha asked. Remember when the princess disappeared? Luzmo asked. How could I forget? She said. Princess Silenta sat up a little straighter. Do you know who took her? Lady Inha struggled to keep her tone neutral. He nodded. The Rosanna did. Princess Silenta gasped. Really? A little of her true accent slipped through. Yes, I did, Luzmo said. Princess Silenta looked at him closer while trying to make it look like that was not what she was doing. She felt like she had seen him before, but she was not sure where. Suddenly, the memories came back to her. She gasped, clutching her godmother's arm. Oh, my goodness, she said, her true accent breaking through. For some reason, Moria had tied her memories to Vila and Luzmo, rather than to Garenthal's return. Concerned, Lady Inha held her. What's happening? Are you all right? Too shocked to say anything, Princess Silenta just shook her head. Her memories were like a tide, threatening to overwhelm her. Finally, they subsided, and she sat up, but kept holding Lady Inha's arm. I remember it all, she said, still in her normal voice. Why'd your voice change? Vyasinya asked, frowning. She blinked, then sighed. Well, I suppose there was no use in hiding it any more. I am Princess Silenta, she said. Lady Inha sighed. Miasija. She looked up. But I already heard it. What am I supposed to say? I could have come up with something. I don't like you revealing your identity so easily. Lady Inha turned to Luzmo, Vila, and Vyasinya. You cannot tell anyone about this. Got it? No one can know where she is. They nodded. We won't, said Vila. Vyasinya glanced at a scar on her hand. We won't, she said. Luzmo squeezed her hand. I've already had too many people. Us three, too. Luzmo glanced at where his hand used to be, then looked up and hesitated for a second. My niece is one of your friends, though, Princess. If I see her, can I tell her you're safe, at least? He asked. Princess Silenta nodded. Of course. She looked at Vila. I take it you are her own sister, then? Vila nodded. Lady Inha frowned. Just make sure it's really her. With some of us working with the Jarissa King, we have to make sure that people are who they say they are. Of course, Vila said. Princess Silenta looked at Vyasinya. You were one of the Sorode, were you not? Vyasinya nodded, looking down. Luzmo put an arm around her, and Vila took her hand. Princess Silenta looked at her sympathetically. I am sorry. I heard what they did to you, and I saw some of it, she said. Do I want to know? Lady Inha asked. Vila shook her head. No, and we shouldn't talk about it with Vyasinya here. You've been to Town of Terra. You know what it's like there, Luzmo said, fidgeting. Lady Inha nodded gravely. They were living in our forest, Vyasinya said, her voice small. But only Sorode could find a way through it. Vila nodded. I freed 2 of them. I wish I could have freed all of them. I pray that now that the forest isn't hidden, things have gotten better for them. Of course, since they were not needed anymore, it was possible they had all been killed to keep them quiet, something she had discussed with Luzmo, but never with Vyasinya. They had not been killed. One of the first things Garenthal had done after returning was moving his forces out of the Forest of the Sword and freeing the Sorode, writing a note that he sent with them, apologizing for their treatment and for almost wiping out the Sorode during the Great Jarissa War. Unfortunately, none of the Sorode could read Quinian. So do I. Princess Silenta looked at Luzmo, frowning. I think I remember you, she said. He looked up and she continued. You collapsed after they cut off your hand. He deflated a little, looking annoyed. Ow, flattering, he said. Vila smiled, and Luzmo gave her a pained look. Princess Silenda blushed. But accurate, she said. Lady Inha was frowning. So it started when they captured Silenda, and involved cutting off your hand. She looked up. Has his soul been in an object? Luzmo and Vila nodded. A ring that was kept in the abandoned monastery in Link, he said. Well, I suppose that explains the reports of demonic infestation, Lady Inha said. Well, the souls of the damned and the suffering can be part of a possession or infestation and such, Luzmo said. And infestation can be connected to an object, so in a way... He trailed off when he noticed Vila's smile and blushed. I was raised by an exorcist, he muttered. Lady Inha was smiling a little as well. He reminds me of you, Silenda. I will take that as a compliment, said Princess Silenda. There had been even more of a resemblance when she was younger, since she used to fidget and had not seemed to learn to make eye contact until she was 7. Lady Inha chuckled, before her expression became serious and she turned back to Luzmo and Vila. So the Jarissa King's soul has been in a ring for the past 50 years, and they brought him back with Silenda's magic in your hand. It was not really a question, but Luzmo nodded. Yes, that's what happened, he said. Lady Inha sighed and sat back. Well, now we know. And Silenda has her memories back. She looked up. Is there anything else? Luzmo nodded. Yes, it's about the wall. He shifted, and Vila took his hand. This is gonna sound bad coming from me, so you gotta promise you'll not throw me out or anything, he said. I try to avoid it, and it would be a bit hypocritical to throw you out for saying something I wouldn't throw out a Soledo for saying, considering why we started this war, Lady Inha said. He fidgeted. Yes, about that. He took a deep breath and made a face somewhere between a smile and a wince. It was a distraction so they could bring back the Jarissa King. He winced, bracing himself. Princess Silenda gasped. Masika was right! Partially, at least. Lady Inha smiled. Of course she was. She sighed. If only she had stayed queen a few years longer. Luzmo blinked. You ain't mad? She shook her head. Even if they hadn't done anything, something had to be done about the way we were being treated. I don't like that it got so heated and we let it distract us, but I'm not sorry we did something. He sighed with relief. Good. Princess Silenda was frowning. Then she gasped. Oh, goodness! He has the Exalaro Gregio! The others gasped. Luzmo paled, and Viasinha looked like she might start crying. Luzmo and Vila put their arms around her. That is not good, Lady Inha said, struggling to keep her anxiety from showing. Princess Silenda laughed nervously. That is one way to say it. She nodded, her face set in concentration. I must consider this news. She looked at Luzmo and Vila. Thank you for this. You brought us valuable information and gave my goddaughter her memory back. You're welcome, Vila said. Luzmo nodded and looked at the princess. Sorry for trying to kidnap you. She frowned. At your Quinia? That was you? He nodded. I was being threatened, though not as badly as I thought I was, but the object is still evil, so the whole action is. He blinked and blushed. Sorry, I was raised by friars. And not monks, Vila said. Princess Silenda nodded. It is all right. Being threatened lessens your culpability quite a bit. Lady Inha and Vila shared a look, both of them smiling.